At the historic Egyptian Museum in Cairo, French archaeologist Simon Connor and Egyptian conservator Ede Murter are investigating Ramses' iconic colossal statues to learn how he wielded power across his kingdom using ancient propaganda.
Here Ramses, here also Ramses.
Ramses built thousands of statues and placed them strategically across Egypt. Most are now in museums, and around 90 of them are here in Cairo. Some of them have never been studied up close.
Being able to almost touch them, to be a few centimeters away from their faces, it's quite emotional actually.
Simon and Ede think they might be hiding secrets in plain sight. By studying the details of the stonework, they hope to discover how Ramses used his statues as a tool to increase his power. Colossal statues of pharaohs were a common sight for ancient Egyptians, with temples, cities, and palaces guarded by these giant granite figures. Master sculptors worked on them for months with stone tools, refining the detail with copper chisels, and finally polishing them to a smooth finish with sand. But for ancient Egyptians, they were more than just works of art. They were magical avatars that allowed the pharaoh to connect with their subjects. Once the pharaoh's name was carved onto it, the statue was activated and became a bearer of the king's soul. The team immediately spots some surprising evidence that this Ramses statue was altered after it was first carved.
So here we can see very quickly the traces of modification. You see around the ears, here under the arches of the eyebrows, under the eyes. Here the mouth has been modified, the corners have been dug, the ears have been changed. It bears very clear traces of modification, of recarving.
Although the name on the statue is Ramses II, could it have started out as someone else? To find out, Simon and Ede need to compare the details with an original, unaltered Ramses statue to see what his statues really looked like. Outside the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, Simon and Ede spot a stunning statue carved from granite. They search for clues that it's a genuine statue of Ramses the Great.
The way the king holding two standards completely started with Ramses.
Clearly this statue was made during his own reign for himself.
This statue seems to be looking right at them.
The eyes are looking down. Ramses looks at the people.
Unlike pharaohs gone before, whose eyes looked to the horizon, Ramses used his statues to connect with his people. His direct eye contact is a powerful way to instill awe. Simon and Ede return to inside the museum to compare their findings with the seemingly modified Ramses statue. Sure enough, it has Ramses' eyeline.
The sculptors cut under the eye. They cut here on the eyelid. The idea was to produce a heavy upper eyelid.
The eyelid and downward eyeline is a later modification. Incredibly, an unmodified version of the exact same statue exists in another museum. This clearly shows that the eyes would have looked straight ahead when first carved. Simon and Ede spot more evidence.
Here we see traces of modification of the feature of the eyebrows, enough to create the arches of the eyebrows. So here, the sculptor wanted this part to protrude.
Even the cobra on the crown was recut to the style of Ramses' 19th dynasty snake.
They wanted the snake to have this double loop on either side of the hook. So when statues have to be Ramesized, we have to produce these little features.
It's powerful evidence that Ramses altered an older statue to look like one of his.
This statue clearly was not Ramses originally, it was another king.
So if this isn't Ramses, who is it?
So you have an alternation between one thick stripes and two thin. One thick, two thin, one thick, two thin. This detail is typical of the 12th dynasty, so around 600 years before the reign of Ramses.
They can't tell exactly which pharaoh the statue was for originally, but it's clear evidence that Ramses modified older statues to proclaim his power across Egypt quickly.
The intention was really to choose specific statues, beautiful ones, big ones, of prestigious ancestors, to re-embody them.
Ramses deliberately left evidence of the former kings in the statues. He wasn't trying to steal their identities. He was using the reputation of his most illustrious ancestors to exert and increase his own power.
They had an aura, they had a prestige. And the idea was to show that they were ancient, but that he was the new them.
Recent evidence reveals that nearly 1/4 of Ramses' statues throughout Egypt originally belonged to other pharaohs. Ramses simply recarved them, claiming them as his own. But further investigation of some statues proves tricky because of ancient damage done to them.
Two things mostly are missing: the head of the heroes and here the nose. And it has been completely erased, really carefully chipped off. So the statue is broken, and it's in 90% of cases in Egyptian statues, all of them were intentionally chipped off, cut off.
Ramses used this statue and others as his magical avatar across his kingdom. But once no longer ruler, his statues needed to be deactivated.
You need to remove the magic from the object by killing it. So you remove the nose, you remove the heroes, he's not royal anymore. He's just a piece of stone.
Today, Ramses' statues help piece together the mighty pharaoh's rule and act as vital evidence for how he used them to become the greatest ruler of ancient Egypt.